welcome. And thank you for joining us for today's bestride.com Facebook Live. And today we're going to be discussing important info on infotainment systems. My name is Eliana Raggi. I'll be your moderator today, and it is my pleasure to introduce you to the guy who has all the answers. Sam Abuelsamid is a principal analyst leading Guidehouse Insights e-mobility research service, and he has a focus on transportation electrification, automated driving, and mobility services. Now, Sam regularly contributes to a number of publications, including Forbes and bestride.com. He also co-hosts the Wheel Bearings podcast. So, Sam, thank you so much for joining us again today. We have so much to cover. How are you, first of all? It's 2022. You ready for this?
As ready as I'm ever going to be.
Always smooth and cool. All right, Sam. So let's start off, because as a car expert, we have been seeing a lot of new innovations come into the auto industry, especially in the area of connectivity. Now, I asked you to do this topic because you have your finger on the pulse of everything that happens with technology in the auto industry. So thank goodness you do too, because there's so many new things, new features, new technology. The average consumer can't keep up. And most people don't understand what they do, if they want them, if they're usable, if they're user friendly, and that's why we have here. And one of the things that we know in automotive is that consumers who are looking to buy or lease their next car, they actually really hold connectivity as one of those top factors when making that decision. Talking about this topic today, about infotainment systems, is going to be very, very important. It's going to really help us clear things up for consumers. And I know we have a lot to get to. So if you're ready, I'll ask you my first question, Sam. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, here we go. So first, let's start with the basics. Can you please explain to everyone what an infotainment system is and why it's so important for consumers to pick the right one?
So infotainment is something that has evolved dramatically over the last several decades. The word is actually a comparatively new one. It's basically a combination of information and entertainment. Back when the first car I remember my dad having was a 73 Dodge Dart, and the infotainment system consisted of an AM radio with some push button presets and one speaker in the dashboard. These days, it's actually, there's some cars that don't even have AM radios in them anymore. Notably, Tesla doesn't bother with AM radios anymore. What we have today is something way more complex, and that both provides a lot of options for customers, for drivers, but also a lot of potential risks because of the way you have to interact with them, because there's so much complexity there that you're trying to use while you drive. What we have today, the infotainment systems we have today do things like control your media, control your radios, your audio streaming. In some cases, even video streaming is available, but it also provides systems like your navigation, your GPS navigation, or may even control manage your climate control, your temperature in the car.
That is a lot. And it's funny because behind you, we're seeing what I like to call classic vintage infotainment system, which means not really very much at all. So, but what we saw on the screen was a flat screen that people could interact with. So let's talk about the different kinds of ways that a driver can now interact with an infotainment system, much like that flat screen that we just saw, right?
Yeah. So most vehicles today come with, actually, an increasing number of cases, multiple screens in the car. At the very least, you will almost certainly have on any new vehicle a center screen in the center, at the top of the center console, sometimes sitting up on top of the dashboard that looks like a tablet standing up on top of your dashboard. In other cases, it might be embedded a little bit lower down.
This is a great example.
Yeah,
of
this is a Tesla Model 3 and Model Y center screen, 15-inch touchscreen. In most cases, they are touchscreen display interfaces. Not always. There are some that use other types of controls. And then in addition to the center screen, you also, in a lot of cases now, there's also an LCD display for the gauges. So that's right in front of you, and for the driver. And we also even have vehicles now that have a touch screen over on the passenger side that usually has some kind of filter on it, so that only the passenger can see what's on there. So that if the driver looks over, they're not going to see anything. So it's a privacy screen, and that allows the front passenger to watch videos or manipulate the navigation. And then, of course, you also have screens in many cases for the backseat passengers as well.
That's a lot of screens. Okay,
Yeah.
so touch screen is something that we're seeing a lot more. But let's also talk a little bit because I think we have an example of one that uses voice control. Now, are there a lot of cars out there right now that are using voice control? And is it? Would you recommend it? Is it good? Does it work well?
Yeah, so pretty much every modern vehicle also has voice recognition. So you've got the touch interface where you have to tap on the screen to make things happen, which personally I'm not a fan of when you're driving because it requires you to pay more attention to the screen and take your attention away from the road. So I don't like them. Voice recognition systems have the potential to allow you to control things without taking your eyes off the road, which, as long as we don't have fully automated vehicles that we actually have to drive, then that's where your eyes should be, is on the road, and your attention should be on the road. So systems like the one in that photo, that was the system that's in the Polestar 2, which is based on Android Automotive. That one has Google Assistant as the voice interface, but there are a variety of different voice interfaces. The earlier voice systems in cars were not very good because the car is really not a great environment for using voice control. It's noisy. You have a lot of ambient noise, wind noise, road noise. It's less than ideal. And traditionally, we didn't have very much computing performance in the car. And so these systems tended to have very limited vocabularies. They have very specific commands that you had to remember, because if you limited the number of commands, there was a greater chance for that system to correctly recognize the command and do it, as long as you remembered what the command was.
Right.
If you didn't remember the exact sequence of commands, then you're out of luck. And that tended to frustrate a lot of people. What we've gone to now is newer vehicles have voice recognition systems that they're hybrid systems that have a component that's embedded in the car, in the infotainment system. So it's always there and available. But in addition to that, they also have a cloud component. So if you've ever used,
Wow, you're getting wait. You're getting
okay,
ahead of us. You're getting
all
ahead
right,
of us because I don't wanna confuse people. But man, you are just a wealth of information, Sam. But before we move on to cloud connectivity, because we are going to talk about that, I did want to point out, and if we could put up that other picture that we have, there are still cars that have the screen that also works in conjunction with physical controls. I know my
yeah.
car actually has this, and I actually really like it. But tell me what you think. I mean, not a lot of. I mean, I feel like a lot of cars are stepping away a little bit from physical controls. Do you find that as well?
Yeah, most manufacturers have moved towards touchscreens because that's what people increasingly expect, because they're used to using touchscreens with their phones and their tablets and even their laptop computers. And so manufacturers have moved in that direction, even though I don't think it's actually the best user interface in the car. What you see here is a central controller. This is on a Genesis G70, but you can find similar controls on Mazdas, on BMWs, on some Mercedes and Audi vehicles, although Mercedes and Audi are starting to move away from this towards touchscreens. And so this gives you a control, which I think is more precise. You don't have to look down to try to hit a touch target on the screen. You can keep your eyes on the road and just twist the knob and jog it back and forth to move around, to move the controller around on the screen, and then press down to select things. And I think it's a better solution, but not everybody likes these. Some people don't like them. There are also some vehicles that have touchpads like you have on your laptop computer.
Oh,
Lexus.
now they're getting fancy. They're getting too
Yeah.
fancy.
Well, Lexus has had a touchpad system for a number of years, but they're actually moving away from that now. The Lexus touchpad screen is probably the worst of the systems I've tried. Acura also has a different type of touchpad screen that works in a little bit different way from the one that Lexus does. That works quite well, but it takes a little getting used to because it's a little different from the other systems. But once you get accustomed to it, it works well.
Okay, so we have to discuss this, and we're going to do this now because you've already mentioned it a couple times, and it is definitely a cause for concern because distracted driving is that's a problem in the United States. It's a problem everywhere. But according to the National Highway Transportation and Safety Administration, distracted driving is the reason for almost consistently 3,000 deaths a year in the United States. That's all. It's close to 9% of all accidents are because of distracted driving, and it makes you wonder: is are these kinds of infotainment user interfaces? I mean, do they contribute to that? Would they? I mean, are there some that are safer than others? You've driven a lot of cars, you've test drive a lot of cars, you give reports on a lot of cars. What's your opinion on the user interface that you think might be a safer bet and cause less distractions?
I am a fan of physical controls in the car, especially for things that you use frequently, like the volume control for your audio or your temperature controls. I like being able to just reach down and twist a knob to turn the temperature up or turn it down or change the fan speed, and I don't even have to look at it. I know exactly where it is. My muscle memory knows exactly where it is. Whereas with a touch screen, you don't have any feeling from it. You don't get any feedback from it. So you actually do have to look at the screen to hit the right point. So, that for that example of the Tesla screen that we saw earlier, Tesla has no physical controls for the climate control or for their audio system, except for just a rocker, a roller switch on the steering wheel that you can use to adjust your audio. But if you want to change the station or anything like that, you have to use voice or you have to hit the touch screen. And a lot of times with a lot of these systems, you have a lot of information on there and the touch targets can be small. So if you're going to do a touchscreen interface, I think you need to have a combination of physical and touch controls.
Okay.
So physical controls, a physical volume knob, some physical controls for temperature, and then for the things that you're going to put in the touchscreen, you want to minimize the amount of stuff that's there. You don't want to be drilling down through menus.
Right.
And you want large touch targets, because the other thing, if you think about it, when you're driving, the touchscreen is usually about arm's length away from you. And if you just sit there where you are right now watching this and just hold your arm up for a few seconds and watch the tip of your finger, you will find that the tip of your finger, even when you're not doing anything, is moving around a little bit. So you want big touch targets so you don't have to be very precise. And when you're in the car, you hit bumps in the road, your finger's moving around a lot more. So it's a lot tougher. So you want something that you can do quickly with minimal thought. So physical volume controls, physical temperature controls, and then the stuff in the screen should be very large targets to hit.
That's all great advice. Okay. So now let's talk about that cloud connectivity. First of all, what is it? And I know you're also going to talk about how it affects infotainment systems, but also how it can help with navigation as well. So talk to us. What the heck is cloud connectivity?
So basically, putting a cellular data modem in your car, and this is something that started over 25 years ago. GM was the first to do it with OnStar back in 1996. Now, most new vehicles offer some cloud connectivity built into the vehicle, which allows you to do a wide variety of things. Among others, you can for the navigation, for example, it used to be if you got navigation in your car, satellite navigation, you would have to go to the dealer every year or two and pay several $100s for a DVD or an SD card to update your maps, because the world changes. Roads get reconfigured, new businesses come and go. So you want updated points of interest databases, and you would have to pay, and a lot of times as soon as you drove away, shortly after, it would some of it would already be out of date. So, one of the things we've become used to in the age of smartphones is using Google Maps or Apple Maps or Waze, and all of that stuff is in the cloud. And every time you use the app, it's all fresh and updated. And so, one of the advantages with having connectivity in the car is that things like your maps can be constantly up to date and fresh. So when you search for something, it's there. Another component of this, when I talked about voice recognition earlier, instead of relying entirely on the computers in your car to try to recognize what you're saying, now that you use this hybrid approach where there's a backup, a subset of the capability in the car. So that when you don't have connectivity, which sometimes we don't, you go certain places, there's no cell connection. And so what they're doing is doing primarily voice recognition in the cloud. So when you give your car a command, that you want to navigate to some location, it goes up to the cloud quickly, gets that location, and sends it back into the car. Or if you want to call somebody, it'll use your contacts database that is stored with an iCloud or on Google's platform, and do that. You also have cars today that have built-in Alexa voice services. So if you use an Amazon Echo at home, you know what it's like to use Alexa. You can have that very same capability in your car. Your car can basically be a rolling Amazon Echo device. So if you use Amazon Music, you can request it to play music and stream music. And that's the other thing with connectivity is you can, instead of just relying on radio, whatever radio stations are within range of you, you can also stream music or stream podcasts, or in the case of some cars, you can stream video. And this can be particularly useful if you own an EV and you're sitting there at a charger for half an hour, 40 minutes waiting for it to charge. You sit back and catch up on your Netflix queue.
Ozark.
Or for a road trip, for example, Jeep now has a partnership with Alexa. They've built Amazon Fire TV into their infotainment system so that the kids sitting in the back seat, they don't have to rely just on whatever shows they may have brought with them on a tablet or whatever. If they want to watch something on Amazon Prime Video, they can stream it right to the screen in the back seat. Or I mentioned that some Jeeps have a third screen in the front on the passenger side. The front passenger can also stream video and watch that on their screen. So there's all kinds of ways that cloud connectivity is being used.
I mean, I love that you can stream movies for the kiddos in the back. That is amazing. I can't believe we're here in 2022. But great information about the cloud connectivity, but different, if you wouldn't mind diving into this as well, different than smartphone projection. So let's talk about the differences between cloud connectivity and smartphone projection and why that's important to consumers.
Yeah. So, as I said, we've had connectivity built into vehicles going back 25 years now, and it's now becoming pretty ubiquitous. Almost all new cars have it. But over the last 15 years, we've also had, we've had a proliferation of smartphones. Almost everyone's got a smartphone now,
Sure.
either an iPhone or an Android phone.
Yeah, I think it's like 97% of people have a smartphone.
Yeah. And so one of the things that we can do again in newer vehicles is, if you're not happy with the infotainment interface that the manufacturer of your vehicle has built in, if you don't like the way it looks or the way it works, you can plug in your phone into your car, pair it with your car, and then it will actually project. It can run apps from your phone, project them to the screen in your car.
Oh.
So the one we're looking at here is on the 2022 Chevrolet Tahoe, and this is projecting Apple CarPlay onto an infotainment system that's running Android Automotive, which is something else entirely. And you can run certain apps, primarily media apps, messaging apps, and of course your phone and navigation directly on the screen, and control it through the car, so you don't have to touch the phone. So once you've paired the phone, you don't touch the phone anymore. You're doing it either through the touch screen or through voice. And if you're using CarPlay, you'll use Siri. If you're using Android Auto, you'll use Google Assistant. And when you hit the voice button on your steering wheel, it can actually trigger either Siri or Android Auto or Google Assistant directly, and you can tell it to play your favorite podcast or play a playlist from Spotify or YouTube Music or Apple Music, whatever your preference is, and you can run all those and have the mapping right in there. Even if your car didn't come from the factory with built-in navigation, you can run the maps directly from your phone projected on the screen. So that's smartphone projection.
Oh,
Uh,
that's cool. I like
and
that.
and that's using the data from your phone, running the apps on your phone, displaying them on the screen, and using your phone's data plan. And then the built-in stuff, the built-in connectivity, the thing we have now is uh, a number of new vehicles are now coming out. They're switching to using Android as the basic operating system for the infotainment system. Volvo and Polestar have this now. GM is rolling it out now on some new vehicles. Ford is getting it next year. Honda's getting it next year. Renault in Europe has it. And so in some case, in most of these cases, they're using Google Automotive Services embedded right in the infotainment system. So when you first get in this car, you can log into your Google. If you have a Google account, you can log into your Google account, and it'll have your Google Assistant settings already there. So it'll recognize your voice, and you can log in. You can go into the Google Play Store, download apps like Spotify or Pocket Casts or whatever your preferred apps are right into the car. So you don't even have to connect your phone. It runs right in the car. You've got Google Maps built in there, the Google Assistant, and then it can also, if you're an iPhone user, you can, So this is an example of the Play Store, looking at the media apps some of the media apps that are available on the Play Store in that Tahoe that I mentioned that I drove a couple of months ago. So you
Wow.
can just download the apps directly and run them directly in the infotainment system without without having to rely on the manufacturer's apps.
Okay. Okay. So let's talk about a few of the most popular ones that we hear about. Now, you had already mentioned Android Auto. Is that one more prevalent? Is it in more cars than, let's say, Apple CarPlay or Alexa voice services?
So with Android, I got to make a distinction. Unfortunately, Google is bad at branding, so they have Android Automotive, that's what I was just describing, the operating system that runs right in the car that drives your infotainment system.
Mhm.
And then there's Android Auto, which is the projection system. So if you don't have Android Automotive, you can use Android Auto or CarPlay. And CarPlay and Android Auto work basically the same way. They both do basically the same thing. So it allows you to control stuff on your phone from the car's hardware. And almost all new cars have support for both of them. So pretty much, with very few exceptions, almost anything you go buy today is going to have support for both CarPlay and Android Auto. And so whichever phone you happen to use, you can just plug it in and it should work. Um,
Wow.
yeah. So that and then what is a little bit less common is Amazon, the Alexa voice services. A number of manufacturers now. Toyota, GM, and a few others are building in Alexa voice services into their cars now. Ford is going to be adding it. Can't remember if they've rolled it out yet or not. But they will be adding it, and then in some case, and Stellantis as well. So
Okay.
Jeep, Chrysler, Dodge, those vehicles all have Alexa built directly in, and you can just use it. You just log into your Amazon account and use it. So you can use it to tell you can tell your car to open your garage door if you have your garage door opener hooked up to your Alexa account at home. As you're driving home, you can say, "Hey Alexa, open the garage door," and it'll do it. Or play something from Amazon Music. And in some other cases, you can also use the Alexa app through from your phone, projecting from your phone. Ford does this on some of their vehicles through their Sync App Link system. So if you have the Amazon Alexa app on your phone, you can control it through the car as well that way.
So it doesn't really sound like you have a preference. Do you personally have a preference between Apple CarPlay, Android, or Alexa?
I mean, as somebody that uses an Android phone, I use Android Automotive. You know, but you know, I don't really find a huge difference. You know, there's some visual differences in the way they look on the screen, but they function basically the same way. I have an older iPhone that I use for testing purposes, and you know, I've tried them both, and they're both fine. Whichever phone type you happen to use, you should be good to go.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so is there an advantage to having Android Automotive on top of Android Auto?
The potential advantage to Android Automotive is that first of all, you don't have to have your phone connected in order to use the
Okay.
services and to use the streaming apps, because they're just streaming directly into the infotainment system. So the apps are running in your car; they're not running on your phone.
Oh,
So you don't have to connect your phone with it. And also, you know, you do get access to things like Google Maps directly in the car, and Google Assistant, which is, you know, as voice assistants go, Google Assistant is probably, if I had a preference across the different services, I would say Google Assistant is the best of the digital voice assistants. So it works really well, and you know, it's integrated well. So for example, when I was driving that Tahoe, you know, if the temperature was cold, I could just say, "Hey Google, I'm cold," and it'll crank up the temperature a couple of degrees,
huh.
or vice versa. Yeah, so it's integrated into the control systems in the car, so I don't even have to reach down for the temperature knob, and it does work really reliably. Um,
That's awesome.
so that is a nice system there.
What
But
does
you know,
Tesla
again,
use?
hmm?
What does Tesla use?
Tesla builds all their own stuff. They don't have Tesla is the main exception that doesn't support Android Auto or CarPlay, or anything else. They have a few apps built into their system, and whatever they've built in, that's what you get. And you're out. If you want something different, you're out of luck.
So there's no smartphone projection in
Nope,
Tesla? Wow.
nope. No AM
Interesting.
radio and no smartphone projection. I think they do have support for Spotify. They have support for a couple of music streaming apps that they've built in. But you know, if what they have isn't what you like to use, then you should probably look elsewhere.
Very, very interesting about that. Okay, so I guess let's just keep going down this line of questioning, because electric vehicles are becoming more and more popular, and certainly the OEMs are leaning into electrification. You're no stranger to that topic. So, how does using your phone, using connectivity, streaming movies and Spotify, how does that affect your phone data usage? And for electric cars, is it a drain on the battery?
So, going back to what I was talking about earlier with connectivity, you know, and systems like OnStar, Hyundai's Blue Link, every manufacturer's got a different branding for it, but they all do basically the same kinds of things. This is particularly useful for EVs, because what it allows you to do is you can, from anywhere, using an app on your phone. You have to make sure your phone is paired with your car, so you can use the app and you put in your
Okay.
vehicle identification number, log into your account for whoever your manufacturer is, and everybody's got an app that lets you go in. And actually, even for non EVs, for internal combustion cars, they have apps as well. So you can go in, you can check your state of charge, battery state of charge, if you're an EV driver, or your fuel level, and you can see, you know, check, hey, do I need to go get some gas before I head to this appointment? You know, so you can see that, or do I need to charge it up? You can also do things like control when your car charges. So when at home, you know, overnight, you can go in and you can tell it, you know, if your local utility goes to off-peak hours at say 9:30, tell it to start charging your car at 9:35. Wait until then, so you're paying less
Oh,
to charge your car. Or you can also use it, for example, if you have to leave to go to work at 7:30 and it's cold outside, you can say, my departure time is at 7:30. I want the temperature in the car to be 70 degrees when I leave. And while the car is still plugged in, it will go and it will at say 7:15, it will turn on the heater in your car while it's plugged in, so it's not using any energy from your battery, and turn up the heat. Get your car nice and comfortable, because it takes less energy to maintain temperature than it does to raise or lower temperature. And the same thing applies if you live in Arizona or somewhere and it's going to be hot. You can turn on the air conditioning, so you can precondition the cabin of your car to be comfortable before you unplug it. And so it'll be all set. As soon as you go get in your car, you're all good to go. Windows will be defrosted and everything, and you can go drive. And you also manufacturers also provide a variety of other services like vehicle health reports. So if your check engine light comes on or some diagnostic light alert comes on, it will send an alert to your phone. You can also get 911 assistance. So if you get into a crash and your airbags go off, it can automatically call 911 for you. If your car is stolen, you can locate the car because it's got a GPS antenna in there and connectivity. And so you can see, where's my car? It's like finding your iPhone. It's like, find my car. And some companies even have, like GM, for example, has stolen vehicle slowdown assistance.
right,
So
right.
if you report your GM car stolen to the police, they can go through OnStar, locate where your car is, and OnStar can remotely slow it down and bring it to a stop, so that you don't have high-speed chases of somebody who's stolen your car. So there's
So,
all kinds of
wait. So you recommend a great infotainment system with physical controls, but also OnStar. Am I getting that
yeah,
right?
or any telematics system. And, OnStar is GM's brand, but every manufacturer has their own telematics. Ford's is I think Ford Pass Connect is what
Right.
Ford calls theirs. Hyundai calls theirs Blue Link. Everybody's got different branding, but they're all basically the same kind of functionality. And so I would definitely take a look. Usually when you buy a car new, you get some period of time, usually 2 or 3 years, in some cases 5 years, of complimentary services, basic services, for free. And then there's also some premium subscription services. One of the interesting premium services that some companies offer is, if you have a teenage driver in your household and you want to keep track of where they're going, or make sure that they're not driving to places where they're not supposed to, you can set up a geofence and get an automatic alert if they drive outside of that geofence. Or if they are speeding, you can get an automatic alert. So
Ooh.
it helps you to teach good habits to your teenage drivers.
Oh my gosh, this is a lot of technology we have been discussing for this last half hour, Sam. Okay, so but let's get to the question that I think the average driver really wants to know, which is, okay, well, what happens if you're in a dead zone? What happens if your phone dies? How does that affect the infotainment system? If you're using the smartphone projection or connectivity when you're in a dead zone, what happens?
Oh, you're just completely out of luck. No,
I know, right?
it's actually not that bad. So obviously, if you're in a dead zone, and everybody's been there, especially when you go out into rural areas, there are
Or your
places
phone dies.
where you just have no connectivity.
Right.
Usually for things like the maps, the system will cache maps, of the area around you. So you still have maps that have been preloaded, maybe for 100-mile radius around you,
Oh,
so you can still navigate. For the voice recognition, as I said, they still have a subset of the overall voice system that's built into the car, so you still have some voice recognition functionality. Um, Other things like actual vehicle controls, like temperature controls, That's done locally. That's not actually done so much in the cloud. So if you tell it to change your temperature, it'll handle that locally. The amount of data that's used, for most of these things, the amount of data that's used is actually pretty small. It's not a huge amount of data. But if you're doing video streaming, obviously you won't be able to do video streaming if you're if you're in a dead zone. And when you're not in a dead zone, just as at home or on your phone, if you're streaming high def video, that's going to take a lot of data. So you do need to be careful of that. Let's see what else. If you get into a crash, and you're in a dead zone, hopefully the two don't coincide. Obviously, the system may not be able to call 911 for you automatically. So that's, that can be, that's something to be wary of. But just be careful. So it's the same, it's the same thing as with your phone. If your car's in a dead zone, some things just won't work.
Fair enough. Okay, but that still a lot of information. So brass tacks, let's get down to it. Sam, how does somebody pick which infotainment system is right for them? Does it really depend? Like I'm also an Android user. Does it depend on the kind of phone that you have for the right connectivity? I know you said that they're more agnostic now. How would you pick? What would you tell people?
Yeah, as I said, pretty much every modern phone will work in almost all modern cars. So you don't need to worry so much about that. It's more a matter of, I would make sure you drive the car before you buy it.
Mhm.
Try using the infotainment system. Just sit there in the parking lot before you even drive off the dealer's lot, for a test drive. Just sit there and play around with it and see if you can figure out, without using a manual, see if you can figure out how to do things like change the radio station, or pull up your favorite podcast app, or whatever it might be. Try doing the things that you would normally do and see how hard it is to do it. See if you can do it through the touchscreen interface. One thing to really be wary of is if you wear sunglasses, especially polarized sunglasses. Not every display is the same technology, and they don't all have the same quality levels. So if you wear sunglasses, put on those sunglasses and see how that screen looks when you're wearing sunglasses. Move the car, reposition the car so the sun is shining in directly from the side, and see how much glare there is. See if you can actually see the screen. They seem like trivial things, but if you if you buy a car and you suddenly realize that the screen is all distorted when you're wearing sunglasses, or you can't see it because the sun glare, then that's going to irritate you for the rest of the time you own that car. So make sure you try those things out. And then, try the other controls, and just make sure that you can figure things out, and then try it while you're driving. Try using those things and see if you feel like you're getting distracted by it, or
Ooh.
if it's easy to use.
Yeah, I know we have a picture. Oh, there it is. Picture of the interior of a car that has a touchscreen interface. Now, I'm looking at this
Actually,
picture.
that one doesn't have a touchscreen. That's the Genesis GV70. So it's got the central controller on the console.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, because I was gonna say, for me, I'm not really a tall person, and I don't have really long arms, and it would be really hard for me to reach all the way to where the touch screen would be, like in the center of the passenger console. So I'm just curious. I love that you gave the idea of looking at it through polarized sunglasses. I would never have thought to do that, but ease of use is going to be a problem. And like we said, we talked about distracted driving and things like that. Um, do you, I'm just going to ask you, right? Do you have a favorite that you think works really, really well?
Yeah, I mean, I really like the systems in Genesis and Hyundai and Kia vehicles. They have a nice, simple to use interface. Hyundai and Genesis cars do have a touchscreen. Genesis uses the center controller,
Mhm.
but most of them have have that, what you just saw there, the tablet style screen on top of the dash. In the
With
case of
physical
where
controls too,
with
right?
yeah, but with even with the on the Genesis or on the Hyundai and Kia, where it's a touchscreen, it's a little closer to you, so it's a little easier to reach. But one of the things you'll see on a lot of modern cars is they do put that screen up on top of the dash, and the reason why they do that is you're not looking as far away from it's not as far from your line of sight when you're watching the road. So instead of looking down at the screen,
Right.
you can glance over at it and see it while still keeping an eye on the road. So it's better in that respect. So I like those. The new system in the new Android automotive system in GM vehicles is really good. Stellantis's Uconnect 5 system is really good. It's quite simple to use. It's responsive. So most of the newer ones have gotten a lot better, and even some of the cars that had bad screens, like Toyota and Nissan, had particularly bad screens. Their newer models are getting much better screens in them now, so they're a lot easier to see.
That is Sam, you blow me away every single time you're on our broadcast, and you did the same this time. I feel so much better prepared when talking about infotainment systems just because of this last half hour that we spent together. This was an incredible amount of information, Sam. Thank you so much for being here today. I can't wait to have you on another Best Drive Facebook Live soon.
You're welcome.
Any last minute advice you can give to consumers when looking for a car to buy or lease and checking out their infotainment systems while they're at it?
Um, yeah, I think the main thing is, I would be wary of any system that tries to put everything into touch controls. Especially things like your temperature controls, your turn signals, your wiper controls.
Ah,
Those should be physical controls that you can do at a glance without really thinking about them.
perfect advice. Audience, you got to check out Sam's amazing podcast. It's at wheelbearings.media. He addresses the most interesting automotive stories of the week. He even reviews cars. As you can tell, I feel like he's driven every car on the road, I think. And he answers questions. And we're so pleased that he was able to join us today. Thank you so much, Sam. You're amazing.
You're welcome. Happy to be here.
I love it. All right. So, shameless plug coming your way right now. Best Ride is the smartest, easiest way to find a car online. So, I don't know if you knew this or not, but 1 in 3 people just don't know which vehicle they want to buy next. Best Ride can help. They'll show you numerous vehicles to consider. They'll help you narrow it down to the one that's right for you. You can search by body style, local dealer, car reviews, industry news. You can search by new, used, certified, pre-owned, make, model. You can even look at cars that are just within your zip code. Look, it's a great time to buy a car. Best Ride can help. So search millions of cars. Find your best ride. And by the way, I love that you brought up, Sam, that there's certain things that these new car infotainment apps can do for you, like track what your teenager is doing when they drive the car, because our next bestride.com Facebook Live is actually going to be on finding the right car for your teenager. What a perfect segue. So it's going to be Wednesday, February 26th at 2 p.m. Eastern. And yeah, we know when it comes to buying your first car for your teenager, you and the kiddo, you might not see eye to eye on a lot of things. They're going to look for different things like connectivity and cool factor, while you are worried about cost and safety and reliability, right? I
Best
know.
car for your teenager is a bus pass.
Oh, well, we'll see if the auto expert, Craig Fitzgerald, is going to agree with you. He's going to be discussing the top tips on this very sensitive subject. And he's going to be talking about safety features and driver monitoring and even maintenance and insurance. We're going to find out how you can keep your teen driver happy and safe on the roads in their new ride, and you parents can rest easy. I'm particularly interested in this. I have a 14-year-old and he's already trying to pick out cars. So tell all your friends and your upcoming first-time drivers to put it on their calendar. It's Wednesday, February 26th, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And all you have to do is like the bestride.com Facebook page so you don't miss it. And if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions regarding our broadcast and our topics, hey, I'd love to hear from you. I'm Eliana at bestride.com. Don't wear it. Just keep using it. Email me and let me know your thoughts, and we'll try and get a topic out there that interests you. On behalf of Sam Abuelsamid and the great folks at Guidehouse Insights, as well as the rest of the amazing crew at bestride.com, thank you all so very much for spending this time with us today. And I hope to see you all on another broadcast from us, your friends at bestride.com. Take care, everyone.